Hi, Wes. Hope you're doing good. Thank you for joining today.
Make sure to like and subscribe my channel, Her Career Path on YouTube.
I saw the LinkedIn and everything you shared with me. I was so impressed by this extraordinary journey that you have done. So we know that a lot of students from Pakistan they aim like US, UK, Canada, Germany, but nobody thinks about South Korea. I'll be very honest that I thought of going there, but I saw that there might be language issue. And over there, PhD might be in English, but for masters and bachelors, they always consider if you know Korean. That was one of the reason I was hesitant. But how was your journey over there? So I saw your profile. You went from like BS bioinformatics in Islamabad straight into the senior software engineering role at DRL. So two questions: what made you leave a stable job to pursue a PhD abroad, and why South Korea specifically?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Anusha, for having me here. And thank you for coming on the call with me. And I would love to share my journey. And yeah, definitely we will discuss the South Korea part in that. So I will answer your questions like, in a separate way in both questions. So first of all, yes, just a little correction. So I didn't land straight into senior software engineer position. So I, started as a software engineer, then I worked there for a couple of years, and then I left the company as a senior software engineer. So I actually enjoyed my software engineering job. It was really stable. I did learn a lot. And I was leading the development of enterprise development ERP product for the company. But to be honest, after a few years, I realized something really important, and that I was becoming very good at, building systems that were designed by others, right? And I wanted to be involved in the design process. And I was really passionate about, designing the systems and the products myself rather than only just being the implementer at a company, right? And that realization really pushed me towards my future research career, right? Coming to your important question, why South Korea specifically? Um, so South Korea wasn't really my dream destination that I would like to pursue the PhD, right? And I was not really one of the people who really wanted to go Korea. I had no interest in K-pop, K-dramas, and the BTS stuff. But what attracted me was exactly the research. So I found this research group in South Korea that was aligning really, really well to what I wanted to do, basically data management and story systems and power file systems. So basically what I've done in the company, it was like an extension to that. And I felt like I'm really comfortable in this space and I can do research. So that really gives me a perfect blend that I should go to South Korea. And looking back at that, I feel like the traditional way to go for a PhD abroad is that usually you pick one country, then you look for the universities, and then inside the universities you look for the research groups. I think in my case it was not intentional, but I did a little bit opposite. Like I chose the research group, and then it's South Korea. Okay, I'm fine with that. I approached the professor, and that's how you know the country came. Like, oh, South Korea, I'm going. And I strongly believe that that decision really shaped my entire career till date.
So did you face any language issues over there, or you had to learn Korean before pursuing PhD?
Oh no, so I did not. It was not mandatory to learn Korean language for PhD programs. So there are several universities that really makes you have Korean language skill, but some of the top universities they don't make you, especially if you're in masters or the PhD program. And most of the universities in South Korea, especially for the computer science and engineering programs, are mostly they don't require you to have a Korean skill. So it's fine.
Nice. And one more question, like how is the visa process from Pakistan for South Korea for PhD program?
Okay, so it was pretty simple. I submitted my documents based with recommendation from the research group advisor, who was a professor in the same university. And then university issued me the documents. I went to the embassy, if I could recall, because it's been like more than 11 years now. And embassy did all the visa processing, and they just called me within, I think, a week. I don't think it takes like really long for the South Korean visa, and they just issued me the student visa. That's it. It was pretty simple. I did not pay. Important thing, I did not pay anything to anybody. No admission, no agent involved. It was purely me directly in contact with the advisor and the university, like the admission department. That's it.
Oh, that's nice because I remember for US there are like so many questions coming up, interview questionnaire and all of that. But
Right.
South Korea. So was your PhD fully funded?
Yes, it was fully funded. Because the funding was tied to the lab, to the research group. So once I was enrolled in the lab, I automatically, the funding was manageable for me. So I didn't pay anything. There was a minor university tuition fee, which was covered by some scholarships at the Sogang. So that was also, I would say, like, I was just paying for living expenses, and that too, I was given stipend by my professor. So
Nice.
yeah, I was just like, yeah, all in all, like covered.
You held like a global fellowship and special research scholarship at Sogang.
Right.
So, how important was funding in making this decision? And what would you tell students trying to fund a PhD abroad without financial support from family?
Okay, so for me particularly, funding wasn't just helpful; it made the decision possible for me to really, go abroad and do the PhD. Because if I think coming from Pakistan and pursuing a PhD abroad without funding simply, doesn't sound realistic. And fortunately, because I received this global fellowship and the special research scholarship from the Sogang University, it really allowed me to focus on the research instead of worrying about the tuition and living expenses. So my advice is very simple to your audience, the students in Pakistan or wherever like they're listening to us. Don't assume that you need family wealth to pursue a PhD. Rather, many universities they actually expect PhD students to be I would say like funded because you're contributing to their research, right? And instead of asking yourself, can I afford a PhD? You should be asking yourself, can I find a research lab or a group that invests in you as a PhD student? Because at the end of the day, you are doing research for them, right?
That's
So
such a good point. Yeah.
yeah, so it's really important. And the other thing, I think you asked me minutes before about like a lot of Pakistanis, they don't consider South Korea.
Mhm.
It's I think many students simply don't know how strong South Korea is in research and engineering. Simply, they have like top universities like Sogang, KAIST, SNU, postdoc, and several others, and they have like really world-class research groups, especially in the HPC systems, AI storage, and semiconductor industry, and they're producing a lot of really good talent. So I think it's really important. Students should consider this kind of uh, country. I mean, like just get out of that bubble that only UK, Australia, and US is important, but there are like tons of other countries doing really, really good research. So yeah, focus
So
on.
you talked about like your research funding, you talked about the research group, you talked about South Korea and this.
Right.
So your dissertation was on metadata search for HPC storage. So how did you find your research niche? Matlab, if I, for example, today I start, okay, I wanted to do PhD and okay, I want to go to South Korea, but how will I find my research niche? And
Right.
in that process, how much was guided by your advisor versus self-directed?
Okay, so as you saw, like my dissertation focused on the metadata search and discovery for large-scale HPC storage systems, or HPC systems. So I often tell students that your research niche is not usually it just doesn't something you discover overnight, right? It takes time for you to be at that point, and usually the advisors they give you directions by introducing some important problems, but within those problems you have the freedom to go move back and forth and look for other like important or critical problems. You break down those problems into small problems to make a dissertation effect. And so when I was discussing these things with my advisor, so I became very fascinated with the ideas that as the computing is really getting faster, the storage is becoming why the storage is becoming a bottleneck, why it's not getting really fast. So that single question led me into the research areas of the persistent memory, metadata search and discovery, indexing, file systems, and eventually AI infrastructures. So an important thing here I really want to comment is that a good advisor, helps you choose important problems, and they always point you to the truth. They don't tell you the truth; they just point you to the truth. And a good student, a good PhD student, it's gradually learns to define their own, the problems and their way to find the truth. Right? They just point, and you have to find the truth by yourself. So that's like a chemistry that you really have to be in with your advisor. It's really important.
Yeah, I just started my doctorate and I always go with like so many things, and my professor's like, please narrow it down. Please narrow it down. You cannot do so many things at once.
Right.
Please choose one, or whether you have to do qualitative or quantitative. I was like, I'll do both. I was like, you cannot do both.
That's correct. Yeah, you always have to narrow down the scope, break the big problem into small problems, and that's how you get to your dissertation. So a lot of small things. Once you look back after like 4 years in your PhD, you're like, oh, I have done so much. Okay, now I can write a dissertation. Right? It's not something you come overnight. It takes like years.
So what does a typical week look like for a PhD student in systems or HPC lab in Korea? And how is it different from what students might expect coming from Pakistan?
Okay. It's been like a few years that I left PhD, but yeah, I will still answer it for you. So PhD is very different from the undergrad or simply masters because it is not about just taking the classes that you go, finish your assignment and then come back. It's very different journey. So for me particularly, a typical week, will look like that: reading papers, designing experiments and the plans and sharing them with my advisor. And once he's like, oh yeah, this plan makes sense, I will write the code and the scripts. I will debug the whatever the code that I wrote, fix the errors. Meeting with my other project collaborators that are working with me, analyzing the results, and occasionally, discovering that was really, it's not very common, but it is frequent that occasionally you discover that the whole week effort was wrong. I mean, like the whole hypothesis was wrong, and you end up like having nothing in that week. But still, like because you learn throughout the week, so there's always fruit for you, because failure makes you learn more than a success, right? I mean, so I really think like research has a very different rhythm from the coursework. It's completely different. And one thing I appreciate really about the career is the intensity. It's very intense environment, and expectations are really high from the advisors, because people always say like South Korea is like a pressure cooker. They put you under too much pressure, and that environment really taught me the discipline and the persistence, I would say. I also learned that research is more about dealing with as I said, like failure than success. And most experiments don't work the first time. It's a journal or phenomena that you can apply to your life. So if you do something the first time, it might not work for you. You have to keep doing. You have to look for the answers. So that's how it works.
So talking about pressure, I have seen that in your profile, I can see you publish enormous number of papers throughout your PhD and postdoc, which is very impressive. So what's your advice for students who feel overwhelmed by the published or perished pressure?
Okay, so it's a really important question, and I don't know if I can do the justice to this question. I actually don't think about publishing since came into this like real scientist career. But I used to think about the publishing when I was in my PhD, because that's one of the requirement. Now I understood one thing after my PhD, which is too late, that we need to think about solving interesting problems. And if your goal becomes, I need to have another paper just for the pressure of graduation, or from the peer pressure, or from the pressure from your advisor, or something else, then it's very easy to chase the incremental work. Basically, like somebody in your lab did something, and then you can just increment that work without having an interesting problem. You can just increment that and just write something about it and submit it to the conference and the journal, whatever like is the requirement. So you can just overcome with it. But what I understand and what I understood over the years, or learned over the years, is that you should ask yourself, if this problem disappears tomorrow, would anyone notice? For example, me being in a DOE lab at the Oak Ridge National Lab, if I'm doing something just for the sake of paper, it might not help. But if I'm doing something like solving a big, real, practical problem, everybody notices that, and that's more important for me, right? And if answer is yes, then solving it will usually lead to the publication. So, and I would say some of my best work started with usually, with months of failed experiments, I would say, and with weeks of efforts, planning, and I will do this, but they didn't quite ended up like the way I wanted them to be. But yeah, so I think the publication is always an outcome of, or an outcome, a positive outcome of your effort that you try to solve. So
that's such a good advice for me as well. Like I don't know if like more students will take something out of this conversation, but it is very helpful for me at this point.
Oh yeah, I'm glad that I'm making some points. Okay.
So after your PhD, you moved through your postdoc in Sogang, and then you went to do your postdoc at Oak Ridge, and then you're in Micron industry, and then back to Oak Ridge as a scientist. So what drove each of these transitions?
Okay, yeah, you did really dig deeper into my profile. So okay, so after I finished my PhD, I was stuck in South Korea for a while. I already had an offer before finishing my PhD for the postdoc at Oak Ridge. But at that time, because of the COVID, there was ban, and everything was locked down, and I got stuck in South Korea for a while. So I just joined the same lab as a postdoc. And I would say, but out of all these transitions, like postdoc, Oak Ridge postdoc, Micron, and then coming back to Oak Ridge. So each transition helped me answer a different question. So the first postdoc allowed me, to deepen my research after my PhD, basically learning that I can work as an independent researcher. And then coming back to Oak Ridge, it really helped me lead, it gave me exposure to the large scale HPC systems and the real scientific computing problems at scale. And then moving to Micron, because I had some taste of the industry before my PhD in Pakistan. So I thought like the industry mostly worked like that, but it was a little different. So Micron gave me insight into how industry makes architectural decisions and how they transform the research into different products, right? It was completely different. And then returning back to Oak Ridge allowed me to combine both my academia knowledge and the industrial systems thinking to work on the next generation HPC and I systems that we are developing here. So yeah.
Yeah, you answered my other question, which was like, what transferable skills you learned and what.
Yeah.
So
one thing that I want to comment on that is that the biggest surprise for me was how similar, a good engineering skill is desired in both academia or at the industry. If you're a good engineer and if you have good, system design skills, I think you're desirable at um, both like domains. It's just it's your own priority. So you cannot really, answer this question in sense like, oh, this is good for you. No, you have to choose your path. So industry is as good as you think. It's financially strong compared to the academia. You have more freedom, you have less workloads, but financially it's a little bit, less than academia industry. So
you answered my other question as well. I wanted to ask, like, if students are unsure, like what industry to go for, whether like lab research route or just corporate, but you answered that, like what questions they will be asking themselves. So
I think I can comment a little bit more on that. So academia, optimizes more. They focus more for the novelty. Industry optimizes for the products, right? Because industry, at the end of the day, they want a product. They just don't want to say like, oh, you need to be a great researcher, and we will say, Awais is a great researcher from ABC company. But because they want their projects, and industry development cycles are short term. In academia, the development life cycles are long term because you tend to see your recognition or your appreciation after a couple of years. But industry, if the product is pitched to the customer likes it, you get appreciation for that, right? And that's why I always tell students to ask themselves like 3 questions. First, do you really, enjoy creating new knowledge? Are you like just development or developing the product? Second, are you motivated by the long-term impacts? Are you interested in the shorter developmental cycles? Like you want to do something for the short term and you want to move on to the next. That's how the industry works, right? Third, what kind of problem excites you? If you want to address real scientific problems like at scale, uh, earthquake simulations, weather predictions and tornado predictions, designing a helicopter, like the blades in a different fashion. So these are all exciting problems. But if it's not exciting to you, because academia, the growth is slow, industry growth is good. You can jump around. It's much easier. So it's just a tricky thing, right? I mean, you cannot really tell somebody to do like, oh, industry is good or academia is bad. It's everyone's personal choice. And so yeah.
This is one of the questions I really wanted to ask. Since you have now worked in Korea and
Yes.
US and on visas the whole way, what do you wish someone had told you about navigating international work authorization as a researcher?
So first of all, I think I wish someone had told me that immigration is a long-term project. It's not really simple. But what I can suggest is that just keep your records clean and don't indulge yourself in anything which can lead to jeopardize your status in any place, right? And most importantly, understand your visa category. Like you're a student, then you just be a student. If you have a work permit, just stay in the boundaries. I mean, and always plan well before the deadlines. If your visa is expiring and if you plan to travel back home to home country, it's always a risky thing, right? So, and then also apart from all this, most importantly, build your career that the people really value, right? Because strong technical and research expertise, I would say, open many doors regardless of your country. I mean, so it's really important. So always just keep your records clean. Don't indulge yourself in any bad things. I think then you will be okay.
Yeah, agreed. Especially with this current climate.
That's right. Yeah. So I think with this climate and this what's going on, it's just you have to be careful about your status and everything.
Yeah. So your internship at Oak Ridge, like 2019, you did that, and as a PhD student, became a long-term relationship with the lab.
Right.
So how important are internships in opening doors to eventual full-time roles abroad? And how did you get that first internship?
Oh, okay. It's a very important question for me because I think the internship at Oak Ridge has probably changed my whole career more than anything else in my life, I would say, or more than anything else during my PhD. And I applied at Oak Ridge for the internship because fortunately, the research group that I joined in South Korea, my PhD advisor used to be the team lead at Oak Ridge. And he had some projects ongoing with Oak Ridge at that time when I joined the lab. And luckily, I was being passionate in the beginning, and he saw some potential in me, and then he connected me to the people at Oak Ridge. So before even going for the internship at Oak Ridge, I was working with them like 6 or 9 months, and then they saw potential in me. It's like, okay, we want this guy to be here, and that's how they did all the things for me, the whole visa stuff. And then I came to Oak Ridge, and that was really important for me. And I really get to work with the people who were building some of the world's fastest supercomputer. I still remember when I came to Oak Ridge at that time, they deployed the Summit supercomputer, which was the world's fastest supercomputer at that time. And during my internship, my focus was not, to be honest, like maybe a lot of people will say, oh, he's lying, but my focus was not getting a job, but it was more on how I can meaningfully contribute to the research at a bigger scale. And that relationship, I would say, continued naturally into the postdoctoral work, and then eventually ended in a staff position. So for your audience, again, I was like, don't consider internships as a temporary job. Rather, I would suggest take it as an extended interview, because during this period you are being observed and monitored very closely, so they know if this guy or this candidate shows potential and he has good passion about what we are doing, they will definitely make you to be part of it. So don't just think like, oh, I have to get a job, that's why I'm doing internship. I would say it's a wrong mindset. So fix yourself, fix your attitude, fix your aptitude. It's really important.
So what's your advice for like Pakistani, Indian, or Bangladeshi students who want to end up in HPC systems research in the US, but is starting from a smaller, less globally known university?
Okay, that's a hard one. But so if I say, I don't think that university plays an important role in defining your ceiling or how up you can reach, that can be partially wrong, because I believe your portfolio does a major role in defining where you can reach. So, for example, these days we receive resumes from candidates when we open the positions. So we look at their papers, we look at their GitHub profiles, we look at their projects. We can judge their technical ability just based on that, without even talking to the student, just looking at the resume, right? So for me, most importantly, I don't look at the university at the beginning. I always look at the resume, at the profile, what he has done, what interesting projects he has done, and are these projects in line with what I'm looking for? He has that skills. Then I just go for it. I don't even look at the university. So I think your portfolio does really play an important role in deciding. So don't always think that you are from a small university or unknown university, then you cannot reach up to a certain ceiling. But I think that's not correct, because I personally experienced I met a lot of outstanding researchers from relatively unknown universities, just because they have been in top tier conferences, just because they are producing consistently a great research and excellent work. So I would say for your audience from different countries, focus on becoming impossible or near impossible to ignore. It just have to be visible. That should be your goal, irrespective of university. Even if you didn't land in a really good university, I would say just try to make yourself visible through other platforms, do your work. In undergrad, I know it's really hard, because a lot of the curriculum and the criteria that we have back in Pakistan is very different, right? I mean, in undergrad, the research trend is very less. I don't know how it is now, but back then, when I was in the bachelor's, it was very different. So
yeah, it's same now as well. It just depends, I think, from university to university. But in masters, this trend is more towards research.
Right.
But at undergrad, they're more focused on practical implementation, on project-based
right.
final year projects, FIPs.
Okay.
So coming to this similar thing that we were talking about, like if you were mentoring a first-year computer science student in Pakistan today who wants a career path, what are the 3 things you would tell them to start doing right now?
Okay, I would recommend 3 things right away. First, learn programming extremely well, because in HPC systems, or the real HPC systems research, is completely built on the strong implementation skills. You will be given some chunk of code, and we want you to understand what is the issue, just solve it, and things like that. Second, start reading research papers much earlier than you think this is the time to read the paper, because when you read research papers, you get to know with the technology trends. So you really get to know, you really update yourself with all that. And third, and most importantly for the people from Pakistan, you really need to improve your communication. I'm not just talking about the speaking, technical writing, presentation, this whole needs to be improved a lot and a lot, as much as you can, because I strongly believe that the technical ability gets you noticed, but the communication amplifies that impact, that getting noticed. So it's really important, technical skills plus the communication, you will have more amplified effect, and you will be, I think, I really wish that everyone should be successful, but it will help you excel in your career.
Okay, that's a really nice advice. Yes, that advice was something that my professors also gave me at that point, and it's very
Right.
crucial in academia as well as in corporate. You need to be visible, and your technical skills needs to be combined with good communication skills.
Right.
So, with this, I want to conclude with one last question. What's one myth about pursuing a PhD or a research career abroad that you would want to bust for our audience?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. I need to gather my thoughts on that. I think the biggest myth is that the life becomes easier after a certain career. For example, if you're doing PT, you think that after PT your life will be more normal and you will be happy forever. But the struggle never ends. That's simply not true. Research, for example, in my case, I'm a research scientist. Research is mostly failures, rejected papers, failed experiments. Every day I encounter either of these things, right? And months where nothing works, and I feel like, oh, for last 3 months I couldn't write a paper. I'm just doing experiments and they're failing. But the people who eventually succeed aren't necessarily the smartest, but they're usually the ones who keep going after everyone else would have quit. So I think, yeah, struggle never ends. So it doesn't matter you're a brilliant researcher or you're like a average researcher. So please believe that the struggle will not end for you. It will keep on going. So
Yeah. So, Awais, thank you so much for all this wonderful information that you have given. And even I got to learn a lot, like given that I just started my research work, and it will be very helpful to help have you as a mentor. And if other students can look up to you and be inspired by this journey and can learn something really good, then it's more like giving back to the society in a way. So, just concluding this conversation with one last question. Since people from Pakistan or India, they will be coming on visas, even in South Korea or in US. So, do you want to tell a little bit about your visa statuses during different roles and how you transition towards it?
yeah, definitely. So I will start with my internship. So I was traveling very frequent to US for different conferences since I was publishing papers in some conference in US. So at that time I had like the tourist visa, like the B1, B2. And then at that time we used to get that visa for 5 or 10 years. I cannot recall, but yeah. And then when I was intern at Oak Ridge National Lab, I was on J1, and that was also sponsored by Oak Ridge. I did nothing on that. I just went to the embassy with the documents, and they just stamped my J1. And after that, when I was offered postdoc at Oak Ridge, I was on H1B, which is CAP. H1B, it's not the lottery system; it's academic H1B. And when I was on my H1B, uh, the employer did help me to file the EB1B, and my I-140 was approved at that time. And but it was approved. I didn't file my 485 at that time, adjustment of status. It was current though, but I transitioned to Micron, and for Micron, because it's an industry, so they couldn't use my H1B, so they made me transition to O1, which is extraordinary researcher visa. And I was on O1 when I received my green card, and after that, I moved back to Oak Ridge. So that maybe sums up the whole story.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary journey, like coming
Yeah,
from J1, that's the exchange visa, towards H1 cap exempt visa, and then towards the outstanding visa, like
yeah. So
E1 B category, that's towards the
right,
research
right.
category that you're qualified, and then towards that. That's amazing. Mine was very, very simple. It was EB3.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I juggle between the statuses, so
Yeah.
I
No,
felt like
that's amazing that you got the outstanding visa and everything. Not everybody
right,
gets
yeah,
that. Usually people go through this either EB2 or EB3 categories,
right,
given that how much work experience they have.
right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And other than that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, one thing that I really wanted to say for your audience is please look for opportunities. There are always opportunities, internship opportunities at the DOE labs like Oak Ridge National Lab, we have Unconventional Lab. Please look at their websites and search for the internship specifically. If you really cannot find, reach out to me if it's possible. I don't know, maybe just search
I
me.
did look up.
Oh yeah. So just I don't know, I mean, like, I just want to tell the students they can just reach out, and maybe, I don't know, if you want to cut this you can just cut it, but it's fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Awais. No, I won't cut anything. We just put it as it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's, I
Benefit
really
from, because
appreciate
there
that.
are open opportunities, and why not if you can get a good researcher. And thank
Right.
you so much for coming up and sharing so much about your journey from, I don't know how much back like in time I took you with all these questions,
Oh
but it
yeah,
was really refreshing to understand like how much a person goes through and then different transitions to come towards like how they are right now. You kind of just see the last thing, oh, he's in US and he's doing postdoc, but you haven't been through the amount of
yes.
journey and the struggle that person has been through so many years.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Most important.
definitely, like the PhD in South Korea. Initially, I had like very ups and downs. During my PhD, it was hard, and then you just need to get along with it,
Yeah.
get to live with it, and then that's how you. Plus, it's really important. Just don't go for the PhD for the sake of PhD. If you are not passionate about the research, in the beginning, there's a phase like everybody's like, "Oh, I don't want this PhD. It's really hard." But there's a time that comes, then you start enjoying it. So I think it's really important to be, to have the enough strength and courage to reach that point. Once you cross that point, then think of yourself like you're done with the PhD. It's very easy. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you so much, Wes, and we'll keep in touch. And thank you so much for sharing all the journey and everything.
sure. I'm glad. Yeah, thank you.